The official Vintage Guitar Magazine 2025 price guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go.
Hello and welcome to Buy That Guitar, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine. I'm your host, Ram Tuli. This podcast is about the joy of guitar. That includes buying guitars, selling guitars, collecting guitars. We're talking vintage guitars, new guitars, used guitars, pre-war, flat tops, electric Spanish arch tops, custom shop guitars, limited edition guitars, basses, amps, effect pedals, lap steels, mandolins, banjo. If it has strings, we're going to talk about it. I spent most of my life studying the vintage guitar market. It's truly something I love and I'm passionate about. I can talk guitars all day, and I'm going to. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another thrilling and exciting edition of Buy That Guitar. Today, I'm with my pal, Binky Philips. Binky, maybe people don't know who you are, but they'll know who you are after this for sure. Actually, you're probably the most famous guy I've ever interviewed, so just know that. Anyways, let me introduce Binky to you poor innocents out there that are just kind of lurking, you don't really know. Well, he's a New York-based rock musician, guitarist, songwriter, and journalist known for his long-standing presence in New York City's early days. You know, he was born a few years after Elvis Presley, became profoundly influenced by the Beatles like most of us baby boomers. It shaped his lifelong passion for electric guitars and rock music. He fronted the semi-legendary punk new wave band, The Planets, active since 1972, and he's played in iconic venues like CBGB's, Max's, Kansas City, all during the 70s and 80s. It was everybody. Anybody who was anybody. They all know that era. That was the thing. And behind music, he's worked as a journalist for Huffington Post. He's run the East Side Village record stores. He's promoted record labels. He's operated his own indie label, Dot Point Period. He's also author of a book I love. It's called My Life in the Ghost of the Planets, or the story of a CBGB almost was. Now, we could talk about all these things, but let's start off with something that when I interview people for this thing, we talk about guitars, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I couldn't wait to get you, because a lot of people have guitar stories, right? A lot of people tell stories. They always have, I got this, I got this, I got that. And they always end that story with, and then I sold it to so-and-so for so much, right?
Right.
Those stories suck, don't they?
It's funny. That negative punchline always kind of ruins it for me. I'm like, dude, what did you do that for?
Yeah, I hear about something incredible that you got as a 13-year-old kid. Your uncle, whatever, gave it to you, and you know, and then I sold it to so and so for whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? I like guitar stories from somebody who has something completely, not just run of the mill, something incredible, and he refuses to ever part with it. And that's you. Would you describe that as you?
That's me. Just for instance, I have a November 1957 Strat that I got in August 1967 when I was 14 for a whopping $50. And yes, I still have it. And yes, it's a bad mother. Then of course, there's the big deal, and it absolutely is. On May 2nd, 1972, I plunked down $650 in cash for Ricky Derringer's Dark Burst 59 Les Paul. At $650, I had $652 in the bank. At $652.80. Let's be exact here. And I'd been working two jobs for a year. I was salting away all my money every week for one reason. The first time a Sunburst Les Paul showed up, I was buying it. And this is, back in 72, you would see maybe one or two a year for sale.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that guitar for like 53 years, and Rick Derringer tried to buy it back from me 3 times, and the third time when I said no, he went, you know what? I sold it to the right guy. So Rick was a gentleman and a wise man and a monster player, just super underrated.
And it just, he passed away gosh, within
Yeah.
3 or 4 months ago, and I don't think I heard one unkind thing said about
No,
Ricky.
he was completely righteous. He just was he was totally down to earth, no star trip whatsoever. I interacted with him about 3 times personally, in one instance, talking to him for over an hour. And he was a delight. He was funny, he was smart, he was wise. And I am eternally grateful to him for the fact that he made the mistake of selling me that guitar.
And I want to point out that the best picture I've ever seen of that guitar is the one that Robbie Lawrence took of Jeff Beck playing that guitar. That's an iconic picture of that guitar
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there.
Pete, you're not the first to say that. That was a wild little episode. Rob Lawrence called me and said, "Listen, Jeff Beck's in town, and I'm doing a book with stars with their Les Pauls." And he said, "Jeff doesn't have a Les Paul with him. Can I borrow yours?" And I said, "Well, of course you can. I'm coming with it, you know." And he said, "Okay."
Yeah. Nobody's, yeah, you're going to hand deliver this thing.
We arrive, and Jeff was like classically surly. He was in a bad mood. You know, what a surprise. And he sat down. I handed him the guitar. He sat down. He played it for about 60 seconds. Lots of all lead single note stuff way up the neck by the 12th fret. And he looked at me. He goes, "This one looks a lot like the one that was stolen from me." You know? And I just,
Yeah.
I went into like completely instinctual behavior. I jumped up from the armchair I was in, and I hovered directly over him, like as menacing as I could. And I went, "Yeah, but it's not the one that was stolen from you." And then I sit back down, and Jeff goes, "Okay, okay," And then I sit back down, and Jeff says, "Okay, how much do you want for it?" And I said, "Are you under the impression this guitar's for sale? Because it isn't." And there was some kind of confused vibe all of a sudden, and I wasn't sure what was going on, and I didn't really like what was going on. So I said, "Listen, do me a favor," and I took out a big pen. I said, "Autograph the back of the guitar for me." And he said, "Oh my God, that would be sacrilege." And I said, "Look at the back of the guitar. The road rash is enormous. I would be really honored to have your name on my guitar." And he took the pen and he looked at me, and for the first time in the entire interaction, his eyes met mine, and he kind of smiled, like, "You know what, you're okay," that kind of vibe. And he signed
Mhm.
it. I thanked him. I put the guitar in the case. I said goodbye to everybody. And I left. But that's where that picture comes from. It's the Navarro Hotel.
I know a lot of people that have played that particular guitar. Tom
Yeah.
Guerra is probably a friend of ours. That he told me that, just off the record, that was the best burst he's ever played,
Oh, no
without a
shit. You know
doubt.
what? He didn't say that to me.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm very flattered.
He said, because we always talk, we always talk about this and that and this, and the word is out on your guitar. It's just that is I guess it's a 59, but it has 58.
No, actually, no. It's stone cold 59. What it was there was a little black dot, blemish in the mahogany, right where the serial number was, and the little dot made the 9 look like an 8.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, seriously, for like, I don't know, like 35, 40 years, I thought I had a 58. And one
Hmm.
day I looked at that dot, and I for the first time ever, I saw the dot, and I got some pictures together. I sent pictures to Victor Pra and George Grun, and they both came back and said that is without question a 59. That there's not one Les Paul with double white humbucker from 58. The heel is very small. The flames are wide. They're not narrow like 58s,
Hmm.
and the color was they for some Vic was absolutely you know the voice of authority on that.
Oh, yeah. And that particular guitar also is in the very first Burst Believers book.
Yes. Actually, I think it's in 3 of Victor Pra's books.
Yeah, who took the picture? Because that's a nice picture of that.
Yeah, it's very photogenic, and one of the things I love about this guitar, and that's kind of rare in the modern ones, is that the wood is the flames are subtle. they're not, when you look at that picture of Jeff Beck holding it, they're not remotely subtle. They're wild. But if you look at the guitar from the neck down, there's no flames at all. It's a plain top. And I dig how much movement there is in the flames. I'll tell you something interesting, or I don't know if it's interesting, but it's kind of funny. When I got the guitar, nobody was talking about flames. Nobody, a sunburst Les Paul was a sunburst Les Paul. There was no difference between a plain
The
top and
cherry
a
sunburst.
wildly
The cherry
figured
sunburst was the way they
uh,
described it. Yep.
job. And when I bought this, I didn't realize how pretty it was. It was a sunburst Les Paul, and I now own the sunburst Les Paul. God damn it! And it was only as the years went by that I started, when it really became a popular thing, and I started seeing photos of others, and I was like, wow, they're not as interesting as mine. But it didn't matter to anyone at the time. And by the way, when I bought it for 650, the going rate was 500. So for about a year, all my guitar friends said, "Dude, you got ripped off. What are you thinking? There's no way it's worth 650." And about a year later, when they were going for 1,500, then my friends were going, "How did you know?"
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know.
So,
I didn't buy it as an investment at all. I bought it because the coolest guitar players, the only cool guitar, well, the two guitar players that didn't use it, Jimi Hendrix and Pete Townsend, but every other hero of mine was playing Sunburst Les Pauls. The first time I ever saw one was Keith Richards on Shindig with the one with the Bigsby.
mm-hmm.
Um, and
Yep.
and then I saw John Sebastian's, and then I saw Mike Bloomfield's.
Mm-hmm. All
And
beautiful.
when I
Yep.
saw
All beautiful.
when I saw Mike Bloomfield's, I went, I've got to have one. I was young. I was like 16. I was like, I've got to have one. And they were, it was like, they're going for $300. How the hell can you afford that?
Now, so we're in the year 1972. Let's tell me what's going on in your life. A lot of stuff is going on in 1972 in your life, right?
Well, it wouldn't occur to me, but you're actually right. Probably the biggest thing is that my band, The Planets, formed. I named us The Planets in May '72, and we did our first gig opening for the New York Dolls at the Mercer Arts Center on December 19th, 1972. And that was the first gig I ever did playing material I wrote. I'd been in cover bands like all of us, but that show with the Dolls, we opened with Eddie Cochran's "Come On Everybody," and we closed with Eddie Cochran's "Nervous Breakdown," and then we had 6 Binky originals in between them, and it was a hell of a night, and it was the night that the Mercury Record Suits gave the thumbs up to Paul Nelson, the A&R guy that wanted to sign the Dolls. So the Dolls got signed that night, and it was Jerry Nolan's debut gig after they'd lost Billy to the tragic overdose in London. So there's no way to overstate how big a deal it was to open for the New York Dolls. There was a growing number of bands, all guys my age, 18 to 23, sort of in that range. And all of a sudden, there was a bunch of us. There was like 12 or 13 bands in New York, and there were no clubs that would let you play original material. There was one dump in Queens, in Woodside, Queens, called Coventry. And that was the only place we could play. And I'm trying to think of how that relates to '72. I got lost there. Sorry.
First of all, I like to make sure everybody here at least looks at your book on Amazon just to read the reviews, if nothing else.
I've actually never done that.
Oh yeah. Well, the introduction part. Here's one. Can I read one from Paul Stanley?
Really? Okay.
So he says, Binky writes with the same infectious enthusiasm that drew me to him at high school. We were outcasts among outcasts. Ultimate fans in search of the ultimate dream, to be one with your heroes and share the glory of girls and the accoutrement to be reveled as members of a rock and roll hierarchy. I'm thrilled that, in spite of what may have never quite happened to him, Binky remains a fanboy at heart and still lights up at every memory tucked away in that file cabinet he calls a head. And that was from Paul Stanley.
I do like that line, the file cabinet he calls his head.
Yeah. Yeah, even Tommy Ramone puts in there. Binky Phillips and the Planets were one of the rock stars of the original CBGB scene. They were already around in the early 70s, transition from glam rock into punk movement. There was a lot more variety at CBGB than people might be aware of. The Planets were a great example of the virtuoso-led school of music, just one of the ingredients that made a night at CBGB's an electric event. Binky's story gives you a good point of view of what it's like to be in a band that was part of the inner workings of that CBGB era.
Yeah, first of all, it's incredibly flattering that he would even mention my band's name. Tommy was the architect of the Ramones. I'm getting chills as I said it. The Ramones were totally his idea, and he got the guy. He found the right guys to do it. So Tommy was an absolute visionary. The other thing that's very flattering is he says, as you just read, the Planets were an example of the virtuoso-led band, and Tommy's calling me a fucking virtuoso. It's like, dude, that was super.
Yeah. I mean, people don't realize. I mean, think about the rock and roll dream: doing shows with the New York Dolls, doing shows with Kiss, doing shows with the Ramones. I mean, this was at an era when, I mean, just think of the crowd. I mean, I can't even visualize this crowd.
It was, well, the thing that's kind of interesting is there wasn't much of a crowd,
So nobody was throwing stuff at you.
If you did a gig and 50 people showed up, that was like playing Madison Square Garden. Me and every other band, including Kiss, did gigs where like there were 11 people in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
4 people and the roadies. So it was. You mentioned something here that triggers a really important thought in terms of history and the way things are portrayed. There was not a movement in New York. What you had was 16 bands trying to get record deals. There was no animosity. I mean, there was some bands that were kind of jerks, but there was like, it wasn't, we weren't, nobody felt competitive with the other guy. It was like a completely self-contained dream and determination. And I mean, like it's all bands. Television, for instance, has a very cerebral reputation, and they were just a rock band trying to get a record deal. And it was only once CBGBs had been up and around for about a year, everybody kind of looked at each other and went, "Huh, we're down here every night seeing these bands. I guess something's happening here." It was very osmosis. It was very slow. I can remember the first gig we ever did at CBGB's was opening for the Ramones, May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 1975. And I think there were like 30 people there, maybe. And we went down. I mean, it was all Ramones people. I mean, I think the Planets were able to corral about 6 or 7 friends, and the rest of the audience was pure Ramones people. So, and we went down well, which was very gratifying. It's the same with the New York Dolls gig. It was really surprising and gratifying that we went down well in front of that crowd, because people who went to see the Dolls did not give a damn about the opening act. They just ignored them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe that's not completely, but and as a general rule, opening acts were just a way to waste half an hour before the Dolls came on.
Let me read something that David Fricke from Rolling Stone said about you guys. He goes, "The Planets were the best rock and roll band I ever saw or heard. I know this because when I got to New York, just in time for the band's demise, everyone I met told me what I had missed. The tale was told here in wit and passion and contagious hysteria." You talk about your book. "The greatest Buster Dream story ever read. It's so good it should come with a Planets album, if only there was one."
That's a very nice guy. I don't know what Dave's doing right now, but he was he was the head of the entire music department at Rolling Stone for many years. And again, to have a guy with those kind of qualifications praise me and my band is it's just great.
It's just, to me, it's like you did make a 2019, like you guys make an album,
Yeah.
but I don't know who was from the original band in that lineup
Just
when you
me.
do.
Yeah, no, the planets in the 21st century. There was actually, for the first couple of years of that decade of that century, the original lead singer of the Planets, Tally Taliaferro, was in the Planets with me. He left, and I wound up the only original member. And the band that recorded the two albums in 2019 consisted of a veteran drummer from New York, had been in like about 7 or 8 bands for like many years. A young kid named Nolan, who we were his first band. He was the singer. And the bass player was just this great guy from Brooklyn, Mike Greenberg. And, you know, it was the Planets in as much as I was writing all the material just the way I did with the original Planets. And my vision hadn't changed very much. I was still, you know, the songs were under 4 minutes, and the songs more or less, that this wasn't completely ironclad, but most of the songs went, you know, intro, verse, chorus, breakdown, guitar solo, verse, chorus, out. So it was like very classically, or I wasn't trying to break new ground. I was just trying to refine, you know, whatever I could do to tinker with the formula.
Yeah. The Rock and Roll Globe described this album as damn near sonically perfect.
Yeah, God bless. That's a woman named Chloe Orwell in Chicago.
Yeah. According to the byline notes on that, you used 14 vintage guitars to give that album that sound.
Yeah.
Great album.
Yeah, I've got my current my current roster is 54, and in 2019 I sold 25.
Oh, see, I never knew that you sold any.
Well, I had to. I was. I mean, I was. What had happened was I inherited some money, and I had to do a lot of like draggy things with that money. There was a lot of people I had to pay back, and I said to myself, you know, I'm going to have some fucking fun with this money if it kills me, and I set aside a certain amount. And I started buying stuff, and I got a little crazy. I was buying 2 guitars a month. And what happened was when you do that, you buy some duds.
Right, and you don't bond with them the way you do the ones that matter to you.
I didn't have a dud, but I had guitars that didn't speak to me. I bought guitars and you'd pick them up and you'd play them for a minute, and it just didn't do anything for me. It sounded good, whatever. And when I got to 75, I was in a 1-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. And if you know anything about Manhattan apartments, the living room was the size of a walk-in closet. So I had 75 guitars stuffed into every closet, under my bed, next to my bed, by the dining table, you know, right outside the lined up right outside the kitchen. And it was just crazy because I wasn't playing any of them.
You mentioned like you didn't get rid of the stuff that when you were 16.
No, there's guitars that, trust me, I mean, there's like 1 or 2 things that I got rid of that I regret that I got rid of a 1956 G brand 6120. But I had a really good one. It was and Gretches are not always really good. This was a really good Gretsch, and I mean, it sounded fabulous acoustically. And I sold it because I realized, as much as I loved the guitar and enjoyed owning that, I sat down and figured it out. I had played the guitar over the last couple of years. I'd played the guitar about 15 minutes in 2 years, and so that's what I did. I got rid of some, but you know, I've got stuff that you know, my daughter will sell after.
Right, and that's what I want to talk about today. I'm going to start with your first Telecaster. It's a '66. Anybody who knows you knows the story of this Telecaster.
Yeah,
but it's a unique Telecaster. It's a maple cap.
Yeah.
And tell the story. Tell how you got this. This is your very first. Was this your first? No, this would be your first Telecaster.
My guitar history starts with my father's classical guitar. The Beatles were in Ed Sullivan on February 9th, and I took my first guitar lesson 3 days later on February 12th Lincoln's birthday,
Mhm.
1964. And my father would go and take a lesson. He'd come home and he'd show me what he had just learned. And I picked everything up so quickly that my dad just went, you know what, I'm gonna you're gonna take the lessons now. So that was the very first guitar. The second guitar was a knockoff Les Paul. Like I said, I flipped over Keith Richards with the Bigsby one and on the Heart of Stone on Shindig, and my father, I said, this is what I want. I want one that looks like this. And my father got something called a Zimgar, which was a cheap Japanese knockoff.
Mhm.
Back when this was back in the old days when made in Japan was like an
Yeah,
insult.
yeah.
I mean, it completely reversed itself. But the first real guitar I got was for Christmas 1966. My dad bought me a Fender Telecaster, and I had been the first one of these things Jeff Beck's Esquire was the first time I ever saw a Telecaster shape, and I just loved it. In fact, Telecasters actually might be my favorite guitars, and Les Paul's a very close
Mhm.
second. And I'm just talking about the visual. I love. There's something about the shape of the
Well, it's
Telecaster, the
pure. It's
shape of the
pure.
pick guard. It knocks me out. Anyway, my father takes me to Manny's, which I'm sure most of your listeners know was the absolute mecca of
Right.
musical instruments. I mean, bands would fly into from England just to shop
Mhm.
there. People. I was there once, and a guy. Somebody says, pick up line 2. There's a guy in Brazil that wants to buy 5 Hammond organs. That was the kind. I mean, Manny's was happening, and my father takes me to Manny's on the Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend. So the place is absolutely packed, and at least half of the people in there are kids like me. I'm 13 at the time, and you're just like, there's probably 24 kids between the age of 12 and 15. And my father, he just like walks up to Henry, the son of Manny and the head salesman, and says, I'd like my boy to try a Telecaster. And Henry goes, okay. And he takes it out of the glass case and hands it to me. And I'm being handed, there's no way to overstate this. Telecasters, especially blonde Telecasters with maple cap necks, were absolutely the hottest guitar in the world. When you watch the band on
Mhm.
Shindig, every band had somebody in the band had a blonde Telecaster with a blonde neck. And so I'm holding this thing, and all these kids, I mean, like 8 or 9 kids surround me, and I'm like really embarrassed, and I'm just like playing G chords,
Yeah.
and oh look, I could do a bar chord on the
Yeah.
fifth fret. And I was totally intimidated by the situation. But my father, after a couple of minutes, Henry took the guitar back, put it in the case, and my father said, "Well, I don't know. We'll see, Henry. We'll see." And I knew my dad well enough to know that he. I couldn't see him. His back was turned to me, but I could tell he was winking at
Mhm.
Henry. And sure enough, Christmas morning, there was that big, long cardboard box that said Fender in blue ink. And I still own it. It was stolen from me in 1974. I didn't get it back till 1978. The asshole who'd stolen it from me sanded off the blonde finish, broke the neck pickup. It was when I got it, it was a mess when I got it back. But it's working great now. I got it at a fret shop about a
Mhm.
year ago, and
When did you
it's
decide to take a magic marker and make
Oh,
it
well,
black?
like I said, the guy had sanded off the finish, and my absolute least favorite fenders are hippie fenders.
Mhm.
And I hate that raw wood look. It's like
Yeah. The market doesn't even like those.
it just bugs me. I don't know. It just bugs me. So one day, I had bought this really beautiful wide tip marker from Japan, and the ink was like black, 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 black. And I'd had a couple of beers and I'd smoked a joint. I might as well be honest here. So I was kind of messed up. And I looked at the Telecaster, and I looked at the magic marker, and I went, "Fuck it." I love Bob Dylan's black Telecaster from the English tour that wound up with Robbie Robertson. Anyway, so I sharpied the guitar black, and
And that's how it remains today.
Yeah, and that's how it remains today. And it's just, and it's like once you've taken the finish off a guitar, all bets are off. Do whatever the hell you want. You know what I mean?
What's kind of
I would.
unique about this is that in 1966, how lucky you are that your dad bought the Telecaster was the same price as the Mustang. You could have very easily been given a Mustang to play.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what
No,
I mean? Talk
I
about providence. Talk about good
yeah.
fortune.
I remember. No, I was. Listen, I was obsessed. I was obsessed. And I mean, I would talk about Telecasters all day. I would drive my parents nuts. I'd be like, oh, and the pickup near the neck has a different kind of tone, just I have no idea what I was saying, but I talked about Telecasters all the time,
Mhm.
and I mean, it really was my first guitar obsession. And my second, when I saw Mike Bloomfield with a gold top, I suddenly went, "Oh my God, the Telecaster isn't the coolest guitar in the world. What the hell is this thing?" And then, whatever, maybe 6, 7 months later, there's another picture, and this time it's a Sunburst Les Paul, and I say to myself, "Oh my God, this is the one that Keith Richards had on Shindig." And that displaced Telecasters as my obsessive guitar. And I obviously.
And you'll agree, I know this, that the Telecaster, the Les Paul, and any other thing, they're completely different animals. That Telecaster is unique.
Oh yeah.
And this is a spoiler alert. Next week, I'm doing the Titan. I'm doing an interview with the Titan of the Telecaster for this podcast. I'm not going to say who. Well, everybody knows.
Okay.
But that's because you know me, right? You know that I am Mr. Telecaster. I love Telecasters.
I've read your book, the Telecaster Stratocaster book. I read that whole book 4 times.
Oh.
I got to the end and I went back to the beginning and read it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, you know your shit, sir.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how you explain to people how magical a Telecaster is. And that's what I tried to do is like why, like we were trying to explain here. But next week, I'm going to go into detail of what that makes that Telecaster both physically and, magically what it makes in a Telecaster. So we're going to move on. Now, another guitar that you own, which is another monster guitar, is that SG Special, Batwing SG Special.
Yeah.
And I mean, we might as well talk about it.
Okay.
How did you come by that particular guitar?
How did I come by that one? Okay.
I mean, basically, it kind of hit you in the head, right?
So I was a completely rabid Who fan, and I mean I when they played the Fillmore East, I would sleep out on Second Avenue by the ticket booth overnight to get first row. So the Who played Fillmore East I think 16 times, and I was in the front row directly in front of Pete Townshend's mic for 14 of those 16 shows. And I still remember the seat was row AA 113, and so I was down front. I was like, I mean, Pete was like maybe 8 feet away from me. And I was very demonstrative. I was a guitar player, and he could see I was a guitar player because I was always watching his left hand,
Mhm.
trying to figure out what he was doing, especially substitute. I was like, "What are you doing there?" And yet, I don't know why, but I play air drums. So I'd be sitting in the front row doing air drums like Keith Moon, looking at Pete Townshend's left hand. He and I, he would come out on stage and he'd wink at me, and every now and then, like, in fact, I just mentioned substitute. One night he saw me looking at his hands, and he leaned over, and like while they're playing the song, he does and he shows me exactly how to do it, and he looks at me like, "Did you get it?" And I like nod, like, "Yeah, I got it." And he goes, "Okay." So there was something going on between us, and so we go to they're playing the Metropolitan Opera House. There was supposedly Tommy's final show, and they were the only rock band in history to play the Metropolitan Opera House. And I was in the front row again. And much to my consternation and disappointment, I hadn't planned on this, but there was an orchestra pit that was like 30 feet deep. So front row was really like the seventh or eighth row of the Fillmore. So I was disappointed with that. But the Who came out; they were all Townsend was in a really bad mood, and one of the things that you almost hoped that he'd be in a bad mood because he played better when he was pissed off. anyway, they've finished the show, and the lights come up, and the audience is like cheering, and more and more and more, and I'm like going, so who don't do encores, you assholes? And they come back out, and they start up shaking all over, and they're really wailing, and Pete's way back by his high watt stacks, and he's playing lead, and he's really into it, and he turns abruptly and hits the headstock against the stack and knocks the guitar completely out of tune, like completely out of tune. And he like takes it off and he throws it on the stage, and a roadie runs out with another SG special, and he puts that one on, and they finish the song, and he puts the one that he just got on, he puts down by the amps, and he picks up the one that he had been playing for the whole gig, and what he had done was when he had stepped on it, the roadie was trying to take it off the stage, and Pete like stomped on the guitar like, no, don't take it off the stage, and when he did that, he broke the headstock off. So the crowd is cheering, and Pete walks over and he picks up the guitar without the head, and he carefully wraps the guitar strap around the body, and I kind of on some kind of instinctual level, like when he's going to throw that to me, and sure enough, he like stood at the edge of the stage, he looked at me and kind of gave me like a little like, are you ready for this? And I nodded, and he looked up at the ceiling like he was like measuring, and he threw the thing over this 30-foot wide or 30-foot deep orchestra pit, and Bill, it landed in my arms. I literally caught the guitar by the horns.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
That's how perfect the throw was. It was completely cosmic. It was like, what? I mean, I all of a sudden I had, I'm looking at an SG special like in my arms, just like, what?
Now the crowd's going to start pouncing on you, right? Everybody's starting to come over and try to wrestle that out of your hands.
The crowd people started pouring down the aisles to swipe the guitar from me. And luckily, Bill Graham, who promoted the show, had brought his usher crew in for the show and put them all into tuxedos, because
it was the Opera House.
Bill Graham knew that the normal Metropolitan Opera House usher wasn't going to be able to do shit. So the usher down front on the right side, on Townsend's side of the stage, was this guy who was like 6'6", long blonde hair, a neck beard, no mustache, one eye wandered. He was as scary as the scariest Hell's Angel. And he suddenly, out of nowhere, is standing next to me, and he goes, and he said, this is verbatim, I can remember it exactly. He looks down at me and he goes, "You've been at every fucking Who show I've ever ushered. No one's taking that guitar from you." And he turns to the audience. Not the audience, I mean, all the kids stuffed down there, like 35, 40 kids in the aisle. And he turns to them and he goes, "You fuck with him, you're fucking with me." And everybody, it's like people almost run away, because the guy was like absolutely the scariest usher in the Fillmore East. And then he took me backstage. The whole thing, and I wound up, took it home on the subway. It's been in 7 museums since 2006. It's been in L.A., San Francisco, Chicago, St. Petersburg, Florida, the New York Historical Society. It was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for a year and a half. So wow. I right now, a friend of mine has it because he's putting together an exhibit, and I haven't seen the guitar in like 8 years, because it's been on the road.
Yeah, between you and Tom Guerra and your guitars on the road being showcased, it's like, you never get to play them. But that's history. Like I love that story. I think I said, hey, take a picture with it, for this thing. And you're like, I can't. It's in the museum.
Yeah, that's right. Although I was able to find a picture of me playing it.
That might be the one they use. I set that into the VG guys. They'll use whenever they use.
Right.
Anyway, so let me go back to the Beatles, right? So you know how everybody always claims, "Oh, I was at Shea Stadium. I saw the Beatles."
Right.
You were.
Well, I wasn't at Shea.
Oh, not Shea. You were
I was even earlier.
You were
I was at tennis, the Forest Hills Tennis Stadium.
Okay.
Which was 1964. The Shea Stadium shows were the summer of 65 and 66.
Okay, so this was the first one.
The summer of 64, they played the Forest Hills Tennis Stadium, which at the time seemed like a really big place. I was 11 years old. It looked enormous, but I've seen photos of it since it got torn down, they built a new one sometime about 20 years ago or so. That's like 30 years ago. That's like 5 times bigger. But yeah, I was very lucky. My parents liked the Beatles. The whole family watched Ed Sullivan, and my mother thought they were cute, and my father thought they were, they're very tight. They're really, they're well rehearsed, and the vocals are right on. So my Beatlemania was not stomped on at home. It was not encouraged, but they were fine with it.
So when you saw them at the stadium, could you actually hear them?
Well, yes and no. What happened was I'm at the dinner table. My father announced that he was taking me and my sister to see the Beatles. We lost our fucking minds. We got there, I guess it was about 8 weeks later, and when they came on, the screaming was a sound that I've never heard before or since. It was like a jet engine, and it was constant. It didn't ebb and flow. It was just like
right.
And you couldn't hear the guitars at all. I mean, on the last song, George walked over and turned up his amp, so I heard his solo in "Long Tall Sally," which was the closer. But what you did hear was you could hear the vocals, and you could sort of sense a thump of Paul's bass, and you could hear the cymbals because Ringo had a mic to sing "Boys," and so you heard the cymbals sizzling, and you could hear the vocals. But it was I'm sorry to say I didn't hear any guitar.
Is that the only time you saw the Beatles live? I thought you saw them somewhere else too.
No, that was the only time. It was one of those experiences that once was enough. I mean, I had no desire to see them at Shea Stadium either year because it was just. It's kind of like the analogy I'll draw is going to a NASCAR race. It's incredibly exciting. It's incredibly loud. It's incredibly colorful. It's just completely wild, and you never have to do it again. It's like, okay.
But let me ask you, but why the Who? Why would you go see them continuously?
Well,
because every show was a mind blower, right?
Yeah. I saw the Who like everybody else. I saw them on Shindig first, and what I found interesting was they did "Can't Explain," which I didn't think was much of a song. It sounded just like "Me" by Paul Revere and the Raiders, but it was missing one chord change. So I wasn't sitting in my bedroom going, "Oh my God, these guys I love this song." But what I was mind blown by was the drummer was so what Charlie Watts and Ringo Starr looked like when they played the drums.
Oh yeah.
And Keith Moon was all over the kit, and he's making faces and he's throwing sticks in the air, just holy shit.
Things are exploding. Things are getting kicked over.
And then the other thing that I found interesting was the lead singer seemed like a genuine tough guy, not like a guy posing, but like an actual thug. Like he seemed really, really dangerous. And then the last thing was that this is going to sound funny, but the guitar player's nose. I just was like, what the hell is that face? That's the most amazing face I've ever seen. And I kind of filed them away. And then one day, a friend of mine, a girl who had a terrible crush on a guy named Gavin, had the first Who album because they're Gavin's favorite band. And so I was at her house and we put the thing on. And when My Generation came on, I completely lost my mind. I mean, I was transfixed. It was like I made her play the song 4 times in a row. And I asked her to play it for a 5th time. No, I'm not going to play it again.
Did you ever meet Pete Townsend in person?
Yeah. There are a lot of fans that were very forward, that would hang around the stage door and whatever, chase them into restaurants. I was very, very cool. I didn't do any of that shit. I saw them on stage and then I went home. But a friend of mine had made High Numbers t-shirts. And this is in 1974 when not a lot of very few people knew that the Who had once been called the High Numbers. And this friend of mine he'd made a T-shirt where it said the High Numbers, and there was a photo of the actual High Numbers of the band when they were called the High Numbers, and like totally mod. And I don't know what made me do this, but my friend gave me 4 T-shirts, and I knew that Pete Townsend was at the Pierre Hotel, and I called the Pierre and said, Pete Townsend, please. And like, 15 seconds later, he was on the phone with me, and I said, and he knew who I was, and he said, how are you? When I said, listen, I've got a kind of a special present for the 4 guys, and I was hoping I could drop it off. And he said, yeah, you know what? Come over here tomorrow at 4. And I wound up spending about an hour in his suite with him, just the 2 of us talking shit, talking about guitars, talking about the New York Dolls, talking about the Who, talking about Roger Daltrey. Just so, and he and I have had several interactions since. The funniest thing that ever happened with that kind of thing was there was an after party on the opening night of Tommy the Musical, and I walked in, and there was like 800 people there. It was this enormous ballroom, and it was like really, I mean, no, but there weren't any Who fans. It was just like business people and their wives, and I looked, and at the very back of the ballroom with Townsend and Entwistle were standing all by themselves talking to each other, and I walked back, and as I came within viewing, Entwistle, who was facing me, his eyebrows went up like, hey, look who's here. And Pete turned around and saw me, and instantly, Bill, it was like weird. Instantly, he goes, Binky, I'm going to need that SG from the Met back. I need a bit of ready cash. And he rubs his thumb against his fingers like an old miser. And Entwistle leans in and says, real like, sort of like dark, he goes, Sotheby's next week. You got to give it back, man. So I mean, they go into this joke instantaneously. There was no set. It wasn't like, hey, Binky's here, let's play a joke. It was like like I mean, Townsend went into it, and Entwistle just followed him into it, and it was just like it was one of those marvelous moments where you
you can't buy
these guys
that
are special. This is like, these guys are on another plane.
One time you told me about the time you met Ringo Starr.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Ringo. He's the only Beatle I've ever met, much to my disappointment. I saw John Lennon, and I was walking across 116th Street at Broadway, and John was sitting in a green Chrysler station wagon with Yoko, and I didn't know what to do. It was like, this was like when he had the huge beard, and I mean, he was like really retired from the whole thing, and instead of like running up to the window and going, oh, you're my favorite Beatle, I just let him go. But meanwhile, Ringo, I went to I was invited to a sound check for one of his all-star shows at Radio City Music Hall, and there was a meet and greet. And after he came down off the stage, and like there was about 30 people, and he was shaking everybody's hands, and when he came to me, I said, may I be the 300th person today to tell you that you changed my life? And he looked at me, he said, 301 actually. Which is like classic Ringo. I mean, that's like classic Ringo. I'm friendly with Zach, with his son, Pete Townsend. I had been writing Pete occasionally, describing the newest acquisition guitar I'd gotten, and Pete wrote me and said, I'm going to give your email address to Zach because he's actually more into guitar collecting than I am. And he said he'd get a kick out of you. And then about 3 days later, I got this like really long, like 600-word email from Zach listing all the guitars he owned, and we wound up friends. I had 2 chances to meet him in the flesh, and both times things happened that like screwed it up. So we've never actually never shook hands, but he and I have probably exchanged about 50 emails over the last few years. And he is as funny as his father. He's a riot. He's really smart and talented. And it's like drumming is just one thing he does. He plays guitar, he plays keyboards, he produces, he programs drum machines. He's like he's not quite Todd Rundgren, but he's very, he could be if he wanted to.
I just realized we were going to talk about your guitar collection. We've only talking about 3 guitars.
Well, okay. Let me run down some of the
No, because how people, like I was saying, like people have these guitar stories, right? Your guitars have a story about you, right? Your guitars could tell think of the tale your guitars could tell about you. When I see pictures of you playing, when you guys used to play at Arlene's grocery there, you always got a vintage guitar in your hand. You bring something out. Like, you want to play that vintage guitar live. So, I mean, I would assume that even during your early days with the Planets, you probably brought that Les Paul on stage many times, right?
It was the only guitar I played until the last 5 years. All those photos that you're talking about with me with a different guitar at every gig, that's only the last 5 years or so. I played. Let's pull a number out of my butt. If I did 100 gigs in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, I played the Sunburst Les Paul at 93, 94 of them. I had a white SG Junior, the guitar that of all the guitars I ever got rid of, it's my biggest regret. I had a 64 Polaris White Junior, and it was it was such a badass guitar. And I don't, I got bored with it. And I stupidly, instead of saying, just put it away and you won't be bored 6 months from now when you take it out. But I sold it, and I never should have. But that's the only guitar that replaced the Les Paul, and that was only at about 4 gigs. So the parade of vintage stuff is all pretty recent. I would say let me see if I can list the big boys. I've got a Dan Electro Longhorn, 1965. I've got a 1962 Dwight. I've got a 1958 4-screw Coronet. I've got a 1965 Firebird 3. I've got a 1961 Mono 355. I've got a 1961 Casino. I've got a 1954 old gold top. I've got a 61 Strat that's dead mint, and I've got a 57 Strat, the one that I bought for $50. I still have it. That's actually, I was thinking about this when you said, there was something you said in that made me think that you wanted me to like run down like the most precious, and I figured out if I could only keep 3 guitars, it would be the Sunburst Les Paul, the 1957 Strat, and the 64 Hummingbird. I have a 1964 Hummingbird and a 1963 Everly Brothers. Those are my 2 best acoustics. I have a few.
You wrote most of your songs with that Hummingbird, right?
The Hummingbird, I'll just use a round number. If I wrote 150 songs, I wrote 144 of them on that Hummingbird. That was my main tool. It was never in the case.
That's like a first year one, right?
I don't know. It's funny you should say that, because I actually don't know the first year of Hummingbirds, but it's got a super, super low number. And I know that the guy I bought it from bought it in early March 1964, because he had just been hired to be a music counselor at a camp. And so if he bought it in 1964, in March 1964,
right?
It couldn't be. There was a demand. It couldn't be. The guitar probably had been made within the last 8 weeks of the guy buying it. So I think it's a January '64.
That's kind of when they really start. Now you're the only guy I know that has Everly Brothers that actually likes it.
You know what? There are more bad ones than good ones. I in 1978 I played one for about a minute, and it was a total dud. It had no tone, it had no projection. Those big pick guards just killed the sound. I have a really good one. In fact, mine, I think that the Everly Brothers has an interesting story. J.D. Souther, the L.A. cowboy guy that wrote songs with the Eagles, J.D. Souther has an Everly Brothers, and he's friends with Jimmy Buffett. And Jimmy Buffett is out in LA, and he's hanging out with JD, and JD shows him his Everly Brothers, and Jimmy falls in love with it, just loves the guitar. And he goes home and he calls his dealer and says, you got to find me an Everly Brothers. And I don't know how long, maybe a couple of months later, the dealer says, I've got one for you. And Jimmy's now, he's thrilled. He's got this fabulous Everly Brothers. And J.D. Souther is now in his turf. He's in Florida. And Jimmy Buffett says, "Oh, I got an Everly Brothers, dude. Hold on, let me show it to you." And he takes it out and he shows it to J.D. Souther. J.D. Souther goes, "That was stolen from me 8 weeks ago."
Mm-hmm.
And so Jimmy being a gentleman just went, "Here's your guitar," and just handed it back. And JD, I think JD probably had it for about 40 years, and he sold it to Elliot at Rumbleseat. And Elliot, I remember it was a Sunday night, and Elliot had put he sometimes puts new stuff up on Sundays when I guess from his home on his day off. Anyway, I had checked, I'd looked, I was cruising his site one Sunday night, and I don't know why, but about half an hour later, I went back and cruised it again, and this time there was this Everly Brothers on, and I just, it was instantaneous. I just wrote, I had Elliot's email address, and I just, my subject line was sold, 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 sold. And I just said, get that Everly Brothers off your site right now. That's mine. I'll pay anything you want. Just, that's mine. And I bought it. I'm not going to kid you. I didn't buy it because I thought it was going to be a great guitar. I bought it because
I know.
That's my all-time favorite acoustic guitar. Black with those big pick guards and stars for fret markers. Oh my God, such a cool guitar.
I just know that the Southern Jumbos in general, like when I see somebody on stage takes out the Southern Jumbo, I kind of just put my fingers in my ears because I know it's just going to be, it's just hard to find one that sounds good.
Yeah, no, I know. I've played some really shitty J45s too, but the good ones are the best guitars ever made. I think my favorite acoustic guitars are Gibsons. I had one of the guitars I got rid of in 2019 was a 1954 D28. And it was a beautiful specimen, but as I said a few minutes ago, it just didn't speak to me.
Well, your playing style, the delicacy of a Martin is not going to like it.
It's not.
You got to play. You have to play those big flat tops.
The Martins are a folk guitar. Yeah. In fact, there's a great quote. Joni Mitchell said once in an interview. She said, "When I got to Coconut Grove, all the English balladeers were playing Martins, and all the blues guys were playing Gibsons." And when I read that, I went, you know what? There it is in a nutshell. There's the difference between Gibsons and Martins. Martins you finger pick, Gibsons just like bash. There's another great quote from Hank Williams. He said something like, I record with Martins, but I play gigs live with Gibsons because Gibsons can take the punishment.
Yeah, I love, if I play hard, the Martins do not like it. They do.
Yeah,
not like
I overpaid. I paid like way too much for it. I took a beating when I sold it, but I didn't give a shit. It was like one of the things that I've always felt when I've had to get rid of a guitar, and it's happened. I know I've got many guitars that I've had for decades, but there have been some that came and went, and I just that feel thing is the decider.
I think you and I were talking one time, and I've only sold one guitar. Like I'm like you. I have a lifetime of collection. I've given some away.
Right. Okay.
If you play guitar and you're a relative of mine, you probably get a guitar somewhere. The only guitar I ever sold, and it was because I could not bond with it. It just never moved me. Was the Jazzmaster, a '63 Jazzmaster.
Yeah.
And I think you and I talked about this, and you said, "Well, they're a great rhythm guitar." And that's what you said. You said it's a great rhythm guitar, and you agreed you can't play it like a Telecaster.
No, a guy named Matt Brewster, who owns 30th Street Guitars in New York, a real expert. He told me that jazz guys were actually complaining to Leo that there was too much sustain on Stratocasters, that the notes didn't die, that when they were playing fast licks, these are jazz guys, and so he created a pickup where all the power was in the first the first stroke. and then it dies very quickly, relatively speaking. Um, and consequently, it's a fantastic guitar for strumming. I I once saw a photo. It's one of my favorite photos. It's a Phil Spector session, and I don't remember what studio it's in, but there are four guys sitting in like folding chairs next to each other. All four of them have Sunburst Jazz Masters. I mean, Phil Spector had four guys playing rhythm on Jazz
Yeah.
Masters. You know, I have a '59 Jazz Master. I'm one of the very first with a tort guard instead
Hmm.
of the aluminum, and I've learned how to play lead on it, but it was like, you have to work at it. It doesn't
Right.
come.
And if you have that original bridge, good luck.
Yeah, you know what, and I do. I bought one of the what's the things the replacement is called? What is slingshot or
Yeah.
something?
I don't know. Everybody told me, well, that's your problem. You don't have the blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, nah, I
Yeah.
just,
Well, I'm very much a
yeah.
purist,
And that's me too.
and I'm not going to put a new bridge on a '59 Jazzmaster. I'm going to live with the '59 Jazzmaster's
You know,
bridge.
play it.
I'll
Yeah.
figure out how
Dance
to
with the
deal
one who
with it.
brung you. Yeah.
And it's not one of my main go-to guitars, but whenever I take it out of the case, I'm really glad I
Hmm.
bought it. I actually, that was I have as I said, a '59. I was looking at Reverb once, and I'd had a Jazzmaster in the '90s, and traded it towards a Black '68, not Black '69 custom. Shoot, I forgot what I was going to say now. I got waylaid by the Black custom Jazzmaster. So I want another Jazzmaster, but I know that most of them suck. So I just I see like 90 of them on Reverb, over like
Hmm.
a 3 or 4 month period. And finally this one shows up, and it's a two-tone sunburst instead of three-tone. So it's very, very elegant looking. And it's a '59. And I'm mulling it over for a couple of days, and I go back to look at it, and it's gone. And I'm like, oh fuck, I blew it. That's the Jazzmaster I've been waiting for. What the hell was I thinking? Oh man. About a month later, I had like this weird little ESP thing. I was at my girlfriend's apartment, and I'm in the kitchen, and I suddenly go look at Reverb, go type 1959 Jazzmaster into Reverb's search field, and I sit down on the computer, I type it in, and bang, there it is again. And I immediately write the guy, and say, what, this guitar was here, and then it was gone, and now it's back. What's going on? And he wrote back. He said, I had it up for sale for about 4 days, and then decided I couldn't bear it. I couldn't part with it. But now I have no choice. I've got a financial situation that I have to do it.
Mm.
So he sold it to me for a good price, and as I said, I totally understand it. They're not Telecasters and Strats, but
Mhm.
it's a real gem. It's a really good Jazzmaster. It's one of the things that my collection. I'm not the only one. I'm not. This is just not me saying this. Tom Guerra, Joel Danzig, have a couple of friends of mine. It's like all you have nothing but good ones. There's no like okay ones or like kind of semi dud ones. They're all like really good ones, and that is mostly just luck. I mean, occasionally, like I said, with something like a Jazzmaster, I really waited until I pulled the trigger when I saw the right
Yeah.
one.
Mine was a great sounding one. I just could not bond with it.
No, I totally get it. I totally get
You
it.
know, I'd play it and then I would put it on the wall and pick up the Telecaster. Another guitar that you and I both have, me, you, and maybe 7 or 8 other people have, is that Guitarland.
Yeah. Oh, you have one? Oh my
It's a
God,
Dan Electro. I have one. Yeah. Is that easy to play? No. In fact, I remember trying to play it high up the neck, and you can't. You cannot.
yeah. Yes, the radius is stone flat.
You can't bend it, and I'm a bender,
Yeah.
so as soon as I play, it just dies. It's like boom. But I like if you can play the rumble chords at the end.
Yeah.
There you got
Yeah,
it.
no,
That's a great.
that is a guitar I will never sell. That is it's not a great guitar, but it's one of the coolest, weirdest guitars ever made. And anytime I've ever shown anybody that guitar, they like go, "What the fuck is this thing?"
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You know, you and I, if you have one and I have one, uh, I recently read, like in the last 6 months, that they made 200 total, like over, like from like
Yeah.
64 to
If
68.
that.
So
Yeah,
we've
if
got
that.
little rare birds
I
here.
know. When it came up, I think I bought it when I was still in the Navy,
Oh wow!
and because I was buying oddball Dan Electros, I didn't realize it had 34 frets
Right,
when I
right.
bought it. I thought it was just the Longhorn, and it wasn't until years later I'm just playing it. Like how many octaves can I go on this
Yeah.
thing? But that was useless. Like anything past that 12th fret was useless because there was no mandolin. There's no mandolin in
Yeah.
there. You're just
Yeah,
the string's
it's
dead.
a gimmick. I can mine doesn't have any dead notes, so all the way up, and then they're intonated, which is kind of amazing. And you can bend on mine, but I have light strings on it. It's got a great
Oh,
jangle.
it's a
It
great.
it sounds. I mean, it's almost the jangle that you want a Rickenbacker to have. I actually think that Dan Electro's jangle is nicer than Rick's, and I
Mhm.
love Rick's. I have two fabulous Ricks.
Right.
My best Rickenbacker is I've got a 1960 April 1965 Rose Morris 1998. It's the exact
Mhm.
model on the Maximum R&B poster. The three pickup with no binding, Capri body, and that it has the loudest toaster pickups I've ever heard in my life. It like people play, they go, this doesn't really sound like a Rickenbacker. This thing roars, and it really is. It's a
Yeah.
beast, and that's one of the ones that if I could only keep 10, that Rick would be one of them. And again, maybe a little more for the look. Just like I said, as a Who fan, to have the guitar that he's got in that poster is fabulous. I've got a Pelham Blue 345 from late 1966. I've got two Tennesseans. I've got an early 1961 Tennessean, which is the cowboy red one with the one Filtertron,
Mhm.
and then I've got a late 1961, which is the one like George Harrison had. And those are two. Gretsch's is real hit or miss. But these are two really, really good guitars. The later one, the one that looks like George's, is one of the best tones I have in my whole collection. Just a fantastic, like brong, this rich, like it's like
So it
orchestral.
sounds to me, Binky, like if you had to start your whole collection over again, you pretty much have everything you
Yeah,
already
no, I
have.
know.
You go get it
I
all
did,
again.
I didn't even get to the SGs. I've got a
Uh,
1961 SG Les Paul Custom with three PAFs. I've
I know. And doesn't that suck? No, I'm
Yeah,
only kidding.
no, I've got
It sucks to play, but it probably
yeah,
sounds great.
well, those frets, man, that fretless wonder crap it's like everybody says
Yeah.
they suck and everybody's right. It's
But they look
that
cool.
guitar is
They
hard
look
to
so
bend
freaking
on
cool.
because there's nothing to
Yeah.
bend on. The frets are so low. But I've got that. That's a killer. Yeah, the tone is ridiculous. Three humbuckers. I mean, three PAFs. I
Mhm.
have an Ember Red 1965 SG Junior, and I have a 1968 SG Junior, which I call a Pete Townsend Junior. It's
Mhm.
exactly Pete's, but only one
Real
pickup.
quick, all these tone purists that have to have perfect
Right.
intonation. Pick up a goddamn SG Special. Pick up a SG Junior. You
Yeah.
don't need intonation. You just need to know how to frickin' play
Yeah,
it.
yeah, really.
You know what I mean?
There's a point, with those kind of bridges, like the Telecaster double barrel ones and the graduated stop bars on SGs. What you got is you got a compromise. It's like this is the best we're going to be able to do for you, dude. And I'm fine.
Mhm.
I mean, a guitar, as far as intonation is concerned, it has to be one of these. When the intonation is so bad that the E on the 12th fret doesn't sound like the open E, then it's like, okay, get out the
Mhm.
screwdriver and figure out which way to,
Mhm.
is this too short or too long? I'm not as long as I've been around guitars, which at this point is I can't believe it. I'm saying this, but it's 60 years. 60. What the? How did that happen? I'm not much of a repairman. I don't. I mean,
Mhm.
Tom Guerra can. There have been a couple of times where I've like gotten in touch with Tom and saying, I need who can do this on a Les Paul?" And he goes, "I can." And it's like, "Oh, okay." And he can.
Hmm.
I mean, he's not. I wouldn't say he's a repairman, but he's kind of like jack of all trades, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not. I have. I mean, right now I'm embarrassed to tell you, but I've got 5 guitars that need like repairs, all minor.
Mhm.
One needs a truss rod adjustment. 2 of them have like a problem with the input jack. I mean, really small ditzy shit, but I can't do it myself.
I've got that age now where I don't even change my own strings. I just bring them to the luthier that just does my setup. So I said, just do another setup. And out of the setup, I get new strings.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. You know what? That's funny that you should say that because I paid a guy about a year ago. I paid a guy $50 to change the strings of my Rickenbacker 12 string.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I won't even if it's got a Bigsby. No
Oh, I
way. That
can't
the strings aren't
stand
8
them.
years old.
That's
Yeah,
enough.
no.
Yeah, I broke a string on the 355, a B string, and for the life of me, I just could not get it restrung. And I sent a Facebook PM to Tom Guerra and to Joel Danzig saying, what's the secret? How do you guys do this? And both Tom and Joel said, just bring it to me. I'll do it for you.
There's a way to do it. It's a capo,
Yeah, there's a
but I don't
capo,
want to
and
do it.
you have to make a right angle bend right where the ball is. Whatever. I have 5 Bigsby's, and I love the look. I love the way Bigsby's looks, but they're really more annoying than they are fun.
So that's cool. When I sent you the outline of this thing, I said we're going to talk about the guitars you'd never part with, and then I put a thing at. Let's talk about some of our favorite guitar albums.
Right.
You and I always talk music. We always talk rock and roll records and stuff. And I know that both of you and I will have Who Live It Leads on that list, right? And the thing is, I don't think people understand the joy of buying vinyl, listening to vinyl, and buying that album, the Who Live It Leads. Remember all the goodies that came in that?
Yeah. It was fabulous. What a package. That was such a cool
Yeah,
package.
and they repackage these things like the Who Live It Leads. They always come out with like a deluxe version, a silver anniversary version, whatever. And I can't stand when they add in all the other stuff. I only know that album
Right.
by what was on side A and side B.
Right.
And when you put the extra footage in from Hull University and all this, it's not the same.
Well,
It's
it
not
kind
the
of
same.
dilutes it.
And the Stones do that too. I mean, how many times do you see a Rolling Stones deluxe edition where they have all the
Yeah.
outtakes? You realize right away why they were outtakes.
Exactly. They didn't put this out for a reason. Yeah. Well, I would my guitar albums. I think the big daddy of all of them is Are You Experienced? I was 14 when that album came out. And it turned my head inside out. I was just, it was like, what is going on? I mean, I knew it was all guitar, but what is he doing? What is this? What is happening? So that's probably number one. Live at Leeds might be number two. I love Beck's lead guitar playing on Beckola.
Oh man.
Truth is good, but Beckola's better.
The fact that Rod Stewart is singing, does that detract?
I like Rod. I mean, what he became, like the 21st century Dean Martin doesn't really do much for me. But back when he was singing with Beck, I liked it. I haven't listened to this album in many, many years, but there was a time in my life when 10 years after Undead was a religious object.
Mm-hmm.
Alvin Lee, before he got taken down by, I don't know what it was, but I suspect, hard drugs, cocaine, maybe something.
Mm-hmm.
While he was still healthy, that guy was a blazer, just blazing. I also think that the Johnny Winter and live album is fantastic.
Oh, Derringer. I mean, you think about the work Derringer did on that thing, and he's using your guitar, man.
That whole album is my guitar.
Absolutely. I always tell people get that, especially the live, but the the black and white album cover one.
That's, I think, this is straight from Rick's mouth. The only guitar on Johnny Winter and live is my 59. And on the studio, the first album, the first Johnny Winter and album, my Les Paul is one of 2 guitars on that album. And Ricky told me he said I got to tell you, I can't remember which ones, but it's on 2 or 3 White Trash songs too. So I mean, it was his go-to guitar for a good 3 years there.
When you think of the Blues Breakers, Do you remember where you were when you heard the first Clapton Bluesbreaker?
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. Oh yeah, that was a revelation. I mean, I was a Mike Bloomfield fan, so I was really snazzy blues playing was something I was already into and aware of. But I remember hearing that tone, the classic, now almost overdone tone of a Marshall and humbuckers. It was like, oh my God, that is the greatest sounding guitar I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
I there, there's a little known band that I want to mention. Two things actually. One is Rugulator, who a kid named a guy named Danny Adler from Cincinnati moved to London and got signed, and they were kind of like a precursor to Dire Straits or something like that. Anyway, they have a song called Cincinnati Fatback, and there's two versions, and one of them is the B-side version, and that's the version you want to hear. It's some of the most amazing guitar I've ever heard anybody. He is flying all over the fretboard. You can tell
Mm-hmm.
that he's improvising. I mean, it's just, and the thing is you can, and you know it because there's another version, the album version, which isn't as good,
Mm-hmm.
with a completely different solo. You know, so I think I like everybody else. I think that Wheels of Fire, especially Crossroads,
Mm-hmm.
is a great record, important in my life.
When you think of Beano, 1966, when it comes out, think of everything else that was out. I guess Revolver was out, right?
Yeah, I didn't hear it until '67. I don't think it came
But
out.
just the thought that somebody was allowed to crank a Marshall and play a Les Paul through it, and he's just trying to sound like Freddie King, So it's like, wow, like amazing how, they say a face that launches all those ships like Helen of Troy. Talk about an album that launches all these guys into,
Yeah,
chasing
yeah.
tone. All of a sudden now it's not just how fast and what harmonizing you can do. It's who's soloing for you. You think of Beck, Clapton, and Page. All of a sudden, these guys are using Telecasters and Les Pauls, and they're just soloing, and you're just like, dang, that becomes more important than the harmonized
Yeah,
vocals.
yeah, it's true. No, that is what happened. You just mentioned Jimmy Page. One of my all-time favorite guitar albums is Led Zeppelin One, which I think stands up. I mean, that album, I don't. Jimmy Page's production is unearthly. That album sounds like it was recorded 4 weeks ago.
And there was no record involvement, like, no record company
Yeah, no,
involvement.
I mean, it's like just as an example, if you listen to Tommy by The Who, it sounds like demo tapes. And meanwhile, Jimmy Page, his band sounds like, mountains walking. My favorite, maybe my favorite guitar solo song of all time is Good Times, Bad Times. He completely rips. It's so, when it kicks in, oh, man.
Yeah, you're right. The production on that thing, with no record company interference whatsoever, these guys went in and made a record that they want.
Yeah.
Like, no hit songs, man. Remember, they purposely went out of their way, no hit songs.
Yeah.
And he's using a Telecaster. People always say, oh, that's all Les Paul. No.
I know, it's fantastic that he gets that sound out of a Telecaster. It's just amazing. That's my triumvirate. My big three favorite guitarists of all time are Townsend, Jimmy Page, and Jimi Hendrix. Those three guys. I mean, Jeff Beck, Keith Richards, Paul Kossoff. I mean, there's a whole lot of others that I love and rank as high as anyone could rank them. But Jimmy, and Pete are those are my boys. That's my own playing is based on those three guys, and with a little Jeff Beck thrown in.
I can hear it. A couple of years ago, you somehow remixed your Warner Brothers demo.
Yes. Yeah, a friend of mine did that for me, actually.
And I'm telling everybody out there, you got to go and listen to the Warner Brother demo, Summer of '76. I think it's on Spotify. That's where I found it.
Yes. Yeah. It's on YouTube. It's everywhere.
And this album, this is what the second Montrose album should have sounded like.
Oh man, I love it.
When I listen to this thing, I'm like, this is what the second Montrose album should have been. Not what the second Montrose album ever actually was.
Oh, that's very flattering. Thank you, sir. Here's a cute thing that it's the exact story as Twist and Shout with the Beatles. We had done four basic tracks at Record Plant, and it was like 2:45 in the morning, and the engineer said, "Guys, I've got 2.5 minutes of tape left. You want to throw something down live? Is there something that we could just, throw down?" And I said, "You mean like the Beatles with Twist and Shout?" And he said, "Yeah, like the Beatles with Twist and Shout." And our opening number of every show was "Come On Up" by the Rascals, and we went in, and it's a one take version. So when you hear that in the Warner Brothers demo, I mean, and the thing is, it wasn't supposed to be on the demo, but when we listened back, it was like, oh my God, this has to be the opening cut.
Right, and that's why I'm saying, like, to me, that was like, this is kind of like what I was kind of hoping the second Montrose album sounded
Well,
like.
you know what? Here, I'll tell you a sad story that's very apropos right here. The Planets were being signed by Warner Brothers. We had a producer lined up, we had a studio lined up, and Ted Templeman had been on vacation. We were being signed by, major labels depending on the label, there was like 3 or 4 or 5 guys with the title Vice President of A&R. And there was a guy named Bob Regier at Warner Brothers, who was sort of the guy that he was like the exotic A&R guy. Like he signed the Sex Pistols to Warner Brothers. He signed Laurie Anderson. He signed Ricky Lee Jones. So you see, he kind of he was looking for this slightly out of the ordinary, and he loved the Planets and wanted to sign us. And the whole thing, we were like 7/8 of the way to the deal. And Ted Templeman comes back from vacation. He's been in the studio for a few months, busting his ass with this band, working on their debut album, and they're really difficult, and it's like a real hard work. And when he was finished, he took a vacation. I think he went to Hawaii for a month. Anyway, Ted comes back and he hears the Planets demo, and he goes to Mo Austin, the chairman of the board of Warner Brothers, and says, you can't let Bob Regier sign this band. And Mo says, "What's the problem?" And Ted says, "I have the guitar band on Warner Brothers. I signed them. I'm doing it. I produced them. I don't want another guitar band on Warner Brothers. This guy, I don't need any competition." And the band he was talking about was Van Halen. So my band got blown out, and my guitar playing got blown out by Eddie Van Halen. So if you're going to get crushed, it might as well be crushed, righteously.
Right.
I to this day, I'm flattered that Ted Templeman would think my guitar playing was a threat, because he clearly did, because he was able to stop the damn thing from getting signed. And I think my guess is Bob Regier just went, "Oh, never mind, okay." But so that's my sad tale. But it is, I do think getting blown out by Eddie Van Halen is almost a badge of honor.
Well, the good news now is that in our day and age, we can record what we want. You're kind of like doing the singles. I always watch what you got. I love what you do. I tell everybody to go on Spotify, look up Binky Philips. I think you could Google Binky Philips and the Planets.
Yeah.
But there's like, oh man, that 2019 album, your debut, I guess.
Yeah, kind of the debut 40 years later or whatever. Well, I'm very surprised. I didn't realize that you had been paying that much attention. I'm very flattered.
I did. I even have little notes because I listen to this thing all the time, getting ready for this thing. There's a song called Blink, and then there's a song after it, and then there's the last song. I was so taken back in time when I listened to Blink. Yes. It sounded like something off the Easy Action Alice Cooper album.
Oh, interesting.
You know what I mean? Like when you listen to like Easy Action or Pretty's for You, like the early Verve stuff, where Alice Cooper band was like just kind of like that. And when I listen to Blink, when it starts out, I'm like, this could easily have been put on that Easy Action album. This is such a Alice Cooper band sound, I don't know. It just, my mind always works like that. I don't know. It's like me thinking that you guys would have been a better Montrose band than, than Montrose was after the first Montrose album. So I don't know. You're one of my favorites. That's all I can say. I love listening to your stuff.
Well, I really had no idea. I'm very flattered, as I said. It's gratifying because, you throw the stuff out there and you hope that it finds an audience, and, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But you found it, and it means the world to me, man. It really does.
And people listening to this podcast, I'm telling you, find it. Yeah, go find it. You're going to be blown away. I love guitar-dominated stuff, and your stuff is guitar-dominated.
Yeah.
And we both, I think that the whole reason I want to do a podcast with you, because because you and I are the same kind of collector. We just don't get rid of stuff. We have lifelong collections.
Yeah.
You know that there's a point in time where that meant something because of something, and we're not going to get rid of it. The money value that this thing is worth means nothing to us. Well, maybe it does, but that guitar, you're not going to part with stuff that means something to you. And that's why I wanted to talk to you. And I thought, I don't even know how we wound up going in all these different circles, but I think I just enjoyed this. I enjoyed this conversation immensely.
I actually just, while you're talking, I just walked into my guitar room, and I've got over 20 guitars that I've had for at least 10 years. So I don't sell them either, but I did, as I said, I did overdo it, and then had to make a corrective move. At any rate, I've had it's been delightful talking to you, man. It's a kick to talk to someone as passionate as you and as knowledgeable as you, and then to have you, Bill Tully, tell me that tell me that you listen to the planets all the time. It's wild. Thank you. It's really wild.
Yeah, and I'm a critical guy too, aren't I?
Oh hell yeah! No, I know that. I know.
Well, that's cool. Next week, like I said, I already gave the spoiler out. I'm doing Telecasters.
Okay.
Red Vulgar.
That's my guitar, baby.
And we're going to talk Telecasters. I should have done it like in the first season or second season, because that's the guitar I'm most passionate about. But I waited to get Red, and I wanted to get Red to do this. And I met him at the International Guitar Festival. I said, let's do this. And he's like, he's the nicest guy in the world. He's going to do it with me. And I can't wait for that.
That's great. So, you know what, since I know we're at the end of the thing, but just so that I've said it, I have a September 66 Telly, an October 66 Telly, I don't know the exact month, but a mid 1957, a 1964, August 1964 Esquire, which is a bad little motherfucker. In fact, a friend of mine played my Esquire once, and he said, I'm going to call this guitar Homicide. He said, this is kills anyway. And then the last one is, I have a 1971 Sunburst Telecaster with a Bigsby. Just to as you fade away, as I fade out and Tellys fade in.
You could never find a bad Telecaster. You can find lots of bad other things. Super hard to actually find a bad Telecaster.
No, it's Keith Richards. I remember Keith Richards said, Leo Fender, he got it right the first time.
He got it right in 1950. Yeah.
It's wild. And he doesn't play. It's so nuts. He's not a player. It was just I have his autograph. That's one of my favorite little items in my life is I have Leo Fender's autograph.
On a check?
Yes, on a check. The check is made out to a moving company, and the check is number 199.
Yeah, I know everybody out there that when they collect Leo Fender stuff, it's always on a check.
All right, so you know what? I'm wearing out my welcome here, but I've had a great time. Thank you, man. I appreciate this.
Yep. And so this will come out. I guess they'll try to put it out Tuesday. So.
Oh, one last thing. I've seen an advanced copy of Vintage Guitar, and the issue is dedicated to Rick Derringer. And the cover is a picture of him playing my guitar on the cover. Mm-hmm. Damn. Anyway, all right. Thank you again. I hope you got enough material here to work with. Mm-hmm. I think we did pretty good.
Oh, all right. Yep. And we'll see. And so I'll be talking to you later, as always.
Well, you know how to find me.
Yep. One of these days, I think you, me, and Tom to get into a studio together. Maybe all the guys, there's a bunch of guys, and we should just put something down.
Yeah, God, it's been a long time. Well, not that long. 2019 was the last time I did that. All right, Daddy-O.
All righty.
Have a great
Binky.
week.
All right, bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Again, I'm glad to be back. This is season 3, and I wanted to tell you about something kind of exciting. Anybody who's actually reads my books, we actually did an audiobook of Naked and Dimes. So now you don't just read about it. I know we used to have the website, but now the actual riffs, the actual clips, the actual amps, you can hear these things in the audiobook. So the audiobook is going to contain all the different samples from the session. That audiobook is available everywhere you get audiobooks. The Naked and Dimed audiobook coming out real soon. I want you to invite you, if you want to hear what the amps used on Naked and Dimed sound like, now you can. And read the book as you go. The enjoyment is uncountable. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you for listening to Buy That Guitar, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine. Please support VG for all they do for guitar players like us. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment on this podcast. I'd love to hear from you at ram@vintageguitar.com. See you again next week. Bye-bye.
The official Vintage Guitar Magazine 2025 price guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go.